Feeling stuck or unfulfilled? Searching for more meaning in your work and life? Wondering what's next? You're not alone, and you're in the right place. This is Focus on Why, the podcast that turns reflection into action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and each week I dive deep with guests who've chosen to live and work with purpose. Together we explore what drives them, shapes their decisions, and gives their life meaning. Through real stories and honest conversations, you'll discover how to gain clarity, make confident choices, and create a life that truly matters. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Do you understand the power of a focus on why in business? Are your people truly engaged and finding meaning in their work? I deliver practical, interactive workshops that boost engagement, fulfillment, well-being, and purpose, all key drivers of higher productivity and performance. If you're ready to close your purpose gaps, reach out via the link in the show notes today. Today, on Focus on Why, I am joined by Nancy Irwin. Nancy, hello. How are you?
Hello, nice to meet you, Amy. I'm good, thanks.
Well, I am going to ask you the same question I ask every single start of this show. What is it that you're focusing on right now, Nancy?
Well, focus isn't a good word for me in my life. I'm doing quite a few things at the moment. So I've just set up a NGO called Neuraterra, which means neura from the Sanskrit word of transform, light to nurture the earth, terra. And so that's something that I very much believe in, trying to give what you can to improve things. And then I have a consultancy business called Amaterra, which is from the Latin love the earth. And in that consultancy business, I do some work for government policy on how to put sustainable programs together. And then the thing that I've just done is I've just finished writing a book called Is It Fatal? And that's my philosophy, I would say. Sort of a mixture between memoir and self help, a different accent, I think, on in the self help world. It's funny and
Wow.
is to
Okay.
give
So
people
you said that
courage,
focus was not a good word for you. And
that it's
yet,
not over,
what I've
even when
just
you think it is.
witnessed is this incredible focus in different fields.
Well, yeah, so it's exactly the same thing in different fields, actually. So it really is aligned to I'm a very strong believer in finding your purpose, and my purpose is really focused on looking how I can be useful for the world. What
And you
have
say
I
you're a
got?
strong believer
Who
in
do I
finding your
know?
purpose.
How can I make a
Explain to
difference?
me
And so I don't
the
really
journey
mind
for
what that
you.
gets wrapped up in. But what does he say? I think it's something like purpose in life is to find your purpose. And then when you find it, you have to give your whole heart and soul to it. I think that's Buddha. And for me, it started very early as a child. I was very passionate about doing all kinds of things and having campaigns and stuff. I had a dad who basically taught me that if I wanted to make change, I should do it myself. So when I was 6, I used to sit on a wall next to a butcher's. And this butcher's very famous because he used to have a field behind the back of his butcher's and rest the animals and very nicely, kindly kill them in his abattoir. So when I was 6, I decided this was not a good plan. I hatched an escape for the sheep. And so got a few kids together and we rounded up the sheep and we let them out of the field, but they didn't go jumping up into the hills as I thought they would in my little childhood mind. They went into the town and were at the traffic lights, and chaos ensued. And a policeman came to the house, and my family discussed that's not how you do purpose. So, and so it continued. I was a campaigner about everything from going to my MP at 10 to being in a public inquiry at 11. It just never stopped. I always was trying to do something for the better. And I think I was brought up both by a family and a community that facilitated my trial and error of working out what it is that was important to me. And I think that carried on through adulthood. And then I think the really big change that happened to me was I was involved in some near fatal accidents. And yes, I was impaled through the brain. And so that took 10 years to recover from. And when I was incredibly ill, and I just had a very long brain surgery and recovered from this amazingly awful accident, my brain surgeon said to me, God has saved you to do something. I've been a surgeon for 40 years and I've never seen a recovery like yours. And I was really annoyed. It's like, I don't have faith in that way. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, just make sure you do something good and useful with your life. And that, unfortunately, or fortunately, stayed with me. So after the rehab, after going back to university, after doing a postdoc, I was like, is this it? Is this my purpose? And so this one sentence by this one guy really changed how I make decisions. And so when I was working in science, I was thinking, no, this isn't it. Actually, I can do something more and I can scale bigger. And so that's what I've been doing as best as I can in my little ability since.
I just need to take a pause and explain to the listener that I don't know your story. And so when I listen to you sharing that, I am sitting here with my mouth sort of open, like thinking, yeah, that's great, that's great. And as you keep going, and then suddenly you just sort of slip in that, you had this near fatal accident. What age were you?
The second time, so I had a first near fatal accident when I was 21, and I was watching bats in the Azores, and I fell off a wall backwards and hit my head and fractured my skull. So that was my first head injury. And then my second head injury was when I was in Gabon and I was 28. And then I was in a boat and I was impaled into the brain in a boat in Africa in a very remote place. And that one was the one that really took me out, so to speak.
Yeah. And were you operated on in Africa?
I was so ill, I wasn't thought to make it back to the UK. Yeah. So
Wow.
I had hundreds of fractures and gangrene of the brain. Yeah. It's incredible that I'm alive.
It is incredible that you're alive. And whilst you said that you don't have faith in that way and that you were annoyed with him when he uttered this sentence that you need to do something really good, and you are then compelled to do that and make that difference.
Yeah. When you go through something like that, so rehabilitation is very boring and very long, and it makes you think about everything. And when you go through an experience like that, every day becomes important. Every day becomes a gift. And it makes you realize really what's important. And that's, aligned for me with my purpose, and people are important. And that's what I've come to conclude as I've moved through life, that's my drive. So I spend as much time as I can on the things which are important to me, which is justice, respect, and sustainable impact.
And you say that people are important, and yet your businesses are very earth focused.
Well, I mean that in the broadest sense. So, Earth to me is the planet, people, everything. So, how do you summarize that in one word? It's very difficult. So, I used to be very interested in a field of science called ecohealth. So, this is quite popular now. So, where you look at the environment, you look at the animals within that, you look at the wild animals in that, and how that can affect human health, and how humans treat that environment can affect the health of the environment. So that kind of makes sense if you think of that in a philosophical way rather than a scientific way. But that was always my interest. And I've just kind of taken that interest and tried to make it more applied, I suppose, than academic.
I hear you. And every day being important and a gift, and having experienced these incredible near fatal accidents. I mean, not just near fatal, you couldn't have been closer to fatal if you tried. It was really astounding. So, knowing that every day is a gift and it's important for you to fulfill every day and not just fill in the moment, but to create these fulfilling moments, is it overwhelming you every day as you embrace it? How do you know when you've achieved what you need to achieve in that day?
I don't really think it's a list. I don't really think it's a checklist. I think it's really to do with how you feel. Are you doing your best? Are you aligning with what's meaningful? Is it going in the direction that you want it to go? I think people can get really far too hung up on minutia. So I think that causes a lot of stress and a lot of burnout and a lot of misery. I think it's much easier to live a life where you step back a bit and go, am I trying my best? Have I done this? Am I working in alignment with my values? And I think that's where happiness sits.
What is meaningful for you, Nancy?
Meaningful is trying to help others. And so I don't really, I suppose, have a filter on what that could be. So that could be from fintech and education and things like that. That could be writing policy that governments could maybe use. That could be being a good friend and listening to somebody when they really need it. I don't have a full stop, I would say.
You don't have a full stop, and you're having this direction that you know is right because it's a feeling when it's there, and it's this alignment with your values of justice and respect and sustainable impact. That's the guide, the decision making principles that you can have. How do you filter what you're capable of actually achieving so that you don't become overwhelmed?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that. I have a tendency to become overwhelmed, but really, to me, it's about finding the project that excites you, that you get up in the morning and you can't put down, or you can't sleep at night because you're still thinking about it. I'm very excited by problems, solutions, implementing, and then seeing the effect. And so I don't really mind what that is. It really is, I very much enjoy the focus of the problem solving, building a team, trying to get some impact in an area that really needs it.
Can you share some of those problem solutions that you have cracked?
So I was the CEO and founder of a company called Kamapim in Papua New Guinea. So that means, it's a beautiful word in Melanesian Pidgin, which means to sit down and do something together, to add value, or to develop we don't have an equivalent word in English. It's really a beautiful word. You can come up him sampla DY, which means you can put a tree in the ground and it will grow, or you come up him gupla sit down. So this means you sit down together and you create something. So I made a company and named it this beautiful word. And this was a co-creation with others. But that program really was about trying to develop livelihoods for people who are poor and remote in primary rainforests of Papua New Guinea. So we all need rainforests. There's lots of discussion, which we all know, on climate change and saving biodiversity, etc., etc. But how do you do that when the people who own these lands are poor and can't afford medicine and want their kids to go to school? So that company we created with the idea of developing high quality vanilla in small areas so it didn't affect their forest, but did give them decent income. And so that was an absolute joy of a project to be able to help and create and develop. In 6 years, we ended up supporting 21,000 farmers. So that would be about 100,000 people in terms of household. And so that's big impact, trying to use, I would say, common sense, but putting the people together of who can be trained, how to be trained, and then that created a lot of different, I would say, side projects that I then became enveloped with because I was there on the ground and was able to do some things. So yeah, it's fun.
And given that you're coming from a world that doesn't have a word like kamopim, which is to sit down and do something together, add value, and develop, how is it that you're the person that instigated that when it's not something that we even can name?
Hmm. I think, I don't know. I think that that really comes back to my childhood of campaigning about everything from, yeah, apartheid to getting train fares that were fair for children to Manchester. It didn't matter what it was. I was always campaigning about fairness at some level. And so I think I was interested in trying to support people save rainforests, and it just seemed not fair to me that the people who have all of these resources that the world needs are incredibly poor and need help. And so it was trying to find the right teams, the right people, the right markets to support and help those people because it basically it's that key thing in my life, justice. It didn't feel just. And then that was also at the time of I had an interest in emerging diseases, and it was very clear that COVID was going to kick off and there would be pandemics and commodities would be difficult for companies to source in a pandemic. And so I was interested in, again, eco-health. You look after the environment. Can you find markets which will pay more because you're looking after the environment? Can you share the profits with the people who are the poorest at the bottom of the value chain? And can you make a product which is world class? And so that's what we did. And it was interesting. It was an interesting process for me to learn, but it was just part of the piece. So I managed to meet a lot of different people and realized how to scale impacts and where that can then lead to.
And you had this, you said you was very clear that COVID was going to head the way that it did. How did you know?
So I'm a bat scientist by training, something that we've not actually mentioned yet. And so I did a
Apart
PhD.
from falling out the tree.
Well, yeah, that was a mistake. But yeah, so I've studied bats most of my academic life, and bats are really cool and really interesting. And I was interested in the genetics and also the diseases that they have. And so one of the things I was interested in is something that you call host jumping, when you've got one disease in one animal and it jumps to another animal, and then what happens. And so I'd worked on a virus called arenaviruses in South America and published a paper with some colleagues to predict where the next virus would be and where it would be and in which animal it would be. And it took a long time to try and get that published because it was multidisciplinary and that wasn't very fashionable at the time. And that's now very fashionable. And then 3 years after we published, that virus did exist in the animal that we said it did, and it killed 2,000 people within 2 kilometers of where we said it would. And so I became quite frustrated with the process of how to publish and how to get impact. And so coronaviruses, which I'm sure everybody knows a lot more about now, a group of viruses which cause the common cold, one of the group of viruses that causes the common cold. Each lineage, each group of viruses within COVID belongs to a different lineage of bats. And that's the natural host. And so it was quite well predicted that there would be a COVID from that bat in China in the area that there was a pandemic outbreak. And so at the time, people were modeling climate change and how that would affect business, how that would affect commodities, how that would affect the world. But not many people were integrating a emerging disease model into their business plans. So when I was finding it difficult to get some stuff published, I then went to a commercial company and showed them what pandemic would look like to their value chain. But that was 2 years before COVID. And now, and I can't speak, I'm no expert in that. There's many very, very good scientists who work in that area. I was a baby in the scientific system, and it just was my interest, this multidisciplinary approach to how you look at a problem. And so I shifted from the idea of looking at viruses and where and predicting, because the general pattern was if you destroy habitat, you've got diseases you didn't have before. And that's the same with Ebola, with Zika, with COVID. So I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to get into not destroying habitats because that's a bit cheaper than outbreak. And so I shifted my focus to try and do something in that area.
And we're coming back to focus again, and very much linked to purpose in everything that you do, and the why sitting beneath that, this deep understanding for connecting all of these different disciplines and having a perspective that is not singular. So the focus is broad, but it also then allows you to bring together all of these different elements and see the bigger picture here.
Yeah, that and that's the thing that I like. So, it really is the thing that I like is trying to stand back. I think some people call it gap analysis. You stand back and look at what the problem is, see if you can think of an approach to be able to fix something. And it's not rocket science. It's quite straightforward, but I think sometimes it takes somebody who can listen, and that's something I've realized in business. A lot of businesses are done to people. People don't go and ask, what are your problems? How could we fix it? What are you looking for? And so you can be quite successful if you build teams, if you talk to people, if you make something happen with people instead of to people. And I think yeah, that's where I've had the most traction. And then because I've been able to mobilize quite a lot of people and create some traction and some change, that's then led me into working with large donors or politicians who are interested in traction that they can make change. And then that's making me shift more into policy. And that's very interesting, I think. And again, that's the kind of big picture stuff. What needs to happen in order to create change?
Nancy, you bring this incredible sense of calm to your approach to the way that you have described. It's not rocket science. All I've done is listen and then activated the groups, the teams to come together. And with that, the traction then ensues. And you make it sound so simple. But do you recognize your own achievements?
Not really, because I don't think anything that I've done on my own. I really think that it's about I'm a instigator, I would say. You know, it's a group thing. Nothing I think re meaningful, I think can be done in isolation. Maybe that's maybe an overstatement, but the things that I'm interested in is about working with people, and this brings us back to the beginning of the conversation, is what is it that drives me, and it's people. And it's trying to get people to be the best selves together, and then it's amazing what can be done.
So when I said, do you recognize your own achievements? What I mean is, as the instigator and as the catalyst to bring these teams together, do you step back and say, amazing, if I hadn't have instigated that? It's not that it's all about you. It's just a case of you have instigated it. You have been the catalyst. So it's not singularly look at what I've done, but I'm saying for your perspective, do you ever just go, oh, that's amazing. I'm really proud of what I've instigated here.
No, not really. So, so I'm very proud of other people. So I have a manager who's just won an Obama fellowship, and so I mentored her, and she's been mentored by Obama herself, and that makes me incredibly proud. I've got another guy who somebody works for me who came from a village, who now is in a Pacific Forum, giving his opinion for community development. And he met the Prime Minister on the big National Independence Day, and it wasn't just his mum and his wife who cried, his whole village cried, you know, and that makes me incredibly proud. So I get my kicks, I suppose, out of capacity building, you know, what comes next. And I've done a piece on facilitating national identity and birth certificates for women who are very remote in rural rainforests. And I was given the honour of being able to deliver cards and birth certificates to people in the field. And this is something so they can open a bank account, so their kids can go to university. It's a really important and difficult thing for rural people to be able to get ID. And watching a woman look at a picture of her own face for the first time on an identity card and crying because she's so proud to see just a picture of herself. That's what stays with me. That's what gets me up in the morning. I don't need bells and whistles and badges. It's the joy of knowing that I facilitated something that was meaningful to somebody else.
There we go. That's what I was. That's what I'm looking for in terms of the recognition. It's not a formal recognition externally. It's just for you to know that you have in your work created impactful contribution and meaningful experiences for others that they are then going to be able to have a better life in many ways because it's going to give them opportunities that they weren't able to explore before.
Yeah, yeah, and that's very much aligned with my purpose. And I ended up writing this book called Is It Fatal? Because I've lived some crazy things in life. And I think one of the things that's very common nowadays is for people to be very worried about what they're doing, that they feel a bit empty, that they don't know how to find their purpose, that they, you know, they feel a bit lost, or have they done enough? And I think there's a bit too much focus on that. I think it's much more simple than that. Are you dead? Are you dying? No? Well, it's just a problem then, isn't it? And so that's really how we in my family have lived our lives since my terrible accident. And so during my rehab took 10 years. It took me 11 years to be able to walk on grass. I had to learn to walk again, read again, be trained to do science again. It was hard and long and boring. And I think during that process, I really learned how to be grateful for little pieces. And I think people chase big all the time. I need to know this big purpose, and then this will happen, and then my life would be okay. And I just don't think we should be waiting for the lightning bolt and then everything is okay. I really believe in the simplicity of human connection, the simplicity of when things are going wrong, it's okay. You'll wake up tomorrow, you can start again. when when things are, I don't know, the timing goes wrong. I missed a plane once reading a book at a gate in an airport, and I phoned my father-in-law to tell him I was going to be late. And he was like, "So you missed a plane?" I was like, "Yeah, do you need money?" I was like, "No, I'm getting another plane. And I just need to tell somebody because this is awful. You know, I've waited 10 hours for a plane and I've missed a plane sitting at the gate." And he's like, "So you've missed a plane, you're getting another one, you don't need any money. What's the problem?" So he didn't think this was even a story. And I thought this was like a disaster. But actually, it really wasn't. I just got a different plane later. And I just think that that's just like a little sort of example of how I feel that our society treats everything as a disaster. And I think if we could just give ourselves a bit of a break and understand that things take time, build network, build community around you, and you'll work it out. It'll be okay. And so that's sort of my philosophy. And I know it's probably not fashionable because there's a lot of, I would say, philosophy of life and how to find your passion. I'm just not a big believer in passion. I think passion is a poor compass and you can end up going in the wrong direction. I was into bats for a while. I like gardening. I got into vanilla. I like politics. I've got a passion for every mood. I think purpose is more important to try and find. And I think that is something that my near fatal accidents have really made me focus on. But it was something that was always taught to me from childhood. Find your purpose. And that's where happiness will be.
So, being really annoyed at your neurosurgeon, are you still annoyed with him?
Well, of course not, because it turns out he was a very famous brain surgeon and he saved my life. And everybody who's ever seen what he did since is like, oh my God, you're so lucky to have had him. So, no, I'm grateful for the life he gave me, but I'm also grateful for the perspective. I don't think I would have, when you impale through the brain and have gangrene of the brain, you get quite a lot of help and support as they remove parts of your brain and blah de blah de blah. But I just think that one sentence is quite powerful for everybody. What are you going to do with your life? Is it meaningful? And it's connected to being grateful for the time that you've got. It's connected to not wasting your time. But he said it in a way which wasn't pressure. And I think that's also the important piece. I think lots of people can get tied up in, I have to do this now or tomorrow everything's going to be awful. I think it's much more gentle than that. It has to be a philosophical, are you moving in the right direction? Is this where your purpose is? And then if the big changes have to come, you have to give up your job or you have to move country or whatever it is to put you in alignment to what your purpose is, then that becomes easier if you can do that from a calm perspective and knowing yourself and knowing that this is the right thing for you.
Did you ever have a conversation with him again?
No, I didn't.
Is he still alive?
I don't know. I don't know, but that kind of what's called high intensive care trauma, those are special people, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had, well, I won't bore you with the details, but 5 intensive nurses full time, 24 hours a day, just keeping me alive. You know, it was intense. And so I don't think you need that kind of experience to find purpose. I don't recommend it. I think most of the things that happen to most people are the way you can find really where your drive comes from. And it doesn't have to come in a lightning bolt, it can come bit by bit, knowing who you are, focusing on what you need to be you.
I'm with you on that message 100%. I am a very strong believer that you don't need to have a huge catalyst such as a near fatal accident or have experienced or witnessed an event to understand just how significant purpose is. In fact, I advocate that you don't have to go to the extremities of your experience to do that. However, with that is the caveat that when you have something that is so huge, it really does help to cement the importance of purpose and the everyday gift that is life. And so, yes, you are understanding at a level that is very meaningful to you because every moment matters and you're incredibly grateful to all of those who helped nurse you to health again. The reason I asked you whether you've ever reached out is because those people come at a certain time and they do their incredible work, and yet they may never know what then happens as a result. And I just wondered whether it's a they were would be interested in hearing what they were able to affect in those moments.
I think the kind of medicine that we're talking about that I needed, that's their bread and butter every day. They are saving people. So I don't think I I don't know. I've known a few surgeons, and I don't think that's part of their everyday. They're proud, they make connections with some of their patients, but you know, somebody like that will have at least two of those kind of 10, 12-hour surgeries a day that they have to deal with or make decisions about. And so I don't think that will come to them. I think the things that I remember, the people who I am in contact are with my physiotherapists who just held me when I couldn't walk anymore or couldn't stand doing it anymore. Or, you know, the people who were I would say, the unsung heroes of rehab are the people who help you do the very boring things again and again and again until you get better. So, but I don't really think that I know people get very, I would say, tied up in that story. I've been bitten by venomous snakes. I've had leptospirosis. I've been medically evacuated many times. But that to me isn't the point. I don't want that to be, it's funny and it gives other people perspective if I do an after dinner speech or some training or something like that. It can be grounding for people. But not everybody needs those extreme experiences to find change. I really truly believe what people need is human connection. And that can be, you can be the hero of the old lady on your street who actually be really grateful if you just made her a dinner. You can be the hero of the kid in school who's, I don't know, stuck with maths and maybe their parents can't help. Maybe you can. You can have purpose in so many ways which are not flashy. but actually are very meaningful and make you feel better as a person because you're giving. I think that's the thing. I think purpose often comes at some level of giving a bit of yourself to somebody else. And I think that's where joy is.
I love that. And I also find in what you just shared, the way that you're just so flippant about the being bitten by venomous snakes and having leptospirosis, that is not something that you want to get. And being medically evacuated, you just sort of just, yeah, that's happened. You really are this cat of nine lives, Nancy, who has been struck down, but just keeps on going. And those small moments of purpose, which mean just as much as the bigger moments, is such an important message. It really is, that just by giving a bit of yourself, and you have given everything that you have to many parts of the world. There are snakes who've now got part of you somewhere, but jesting, it really is serious. And because of what you have shared today, there is just so much that can be done in so many ways. And this is what's so beautiful about purpose, is it allows you to find what matters to you. And that is this gift, which is purpose, that in serving others, you get the greatest gift of all as well, which is just knowing that you have done something to make someone else's life better in whatever way that is. So thank you for sharing your many focuses on why, because it has been an absolute joy to hear just what is possible with a focus on why, and what purpose can allow you to do. How can someone reach out and connect with you, Nancy? What's the best way?
I'm quite easy to find, but I'm very much a fan of LinkedIn. So please find me on there. I'm easy to connect and message there, but I do have websites for Neuroterra, Amaterra. There's going to be a website soon for Is It Fatal? Because that's a book which hopefully will get published next year. And I might create a little group around that, a group of so that people can have a good laugh about disasters and moving forward and a different kind of way of thinking about going through your day with knowing that you're not dying. Is it fatal? No. Well, it's just a way to move forward. You'll be all right in the end. So, yeah, reach out on LinkedIn or any of the websites. I'm very happy to connect with people, create crazy projects if I can, or come and do a dinner speech or something to keep you entertained. There's lots of stories there.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely, there is. And thank you so much. All of those links are in the show notes. And I can't wait to read your book. It's going to be fabulous. And I just feel like there is, I was going to say, a reason for you being on this planet at this time. I think there are many reasons for you to be on this planet at this time. So, what a joy it is to walk alongside you right now. Nancy, have you got some final words, please, for the listener?
Well, I would say philosophically, don't panic. It'll be all right. Whatever you're worried about today, it's not so much of a problem as you think. Get up tomorrow, you'll be able to get through. So that's one thing. And the other thing I think is really important is phone your friends. Go have human contact. And then that's where your joy will be. That's where you'll find your purpose. That's where you'll find the thing that makes you you. And the world needs you. And so that's my big things for for people going forward.
That's a wrap for today, but the journey doesn't end here. Share your takeaways, leave a review, or post your insights. Your voice helps others discover the value of these stories. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for ways to work with me. Get a copy of my book or to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter packed with clarity and inspiration. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.